It's time to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C.
I wrote at the time that we're in the battle for the soul of this nation. Well, that's even more true today. We are in the battle for the soul of this nation.
20 candidates qualified for this first debate.
Build that wall. Build that wall. Build that wall.
I accept your nomination for President of the United States.
The 2016 election was one of the wildest, with the president out of the norm, the rise of Facebook and other social media like it. One might look at it as if something had changed, but nothing really did change. A division in American government isn't anything new or recent, existing even before the Constitution was accepted as a new form of government, presenting itself in the fight between Federalists and Anti-Federalists. While it was understood to the Founding Fathers that factions were inevitable, there was more focus on the means of controlling its effects, as stated in Federalist Papers 10. Starting with the Constitutional Convention, these factions compromised their ideas, precisely against George Washington's warnings. This division, along with many other external factors, would eventually become the basis for the Civil War. Throughout the Civil War, parties were loosely defined by one's belief in the rights of both slaves and of states. At some point, though, the parties flipped identities.
I have a dream
The Civil Rights Act was more than just a turning point for civil rights, but for the images of both Republicans and Democrats alike. Before the 20th century, the Deep South was in the hands of the Democrats. The South gave Democrats much-needed votes in Washington, and the South gained power. But the Civil Rights Act split this alliance. While the Democrats are now viewed as the Civil Rights Party, there was actually a larger portion of Republicans who supported it. So why did the Democrats take their place in history? Simply because they kind of were. They held the chambers and the presidency. But even more damning was what the Republican Party did right after. Barry Goldwater, their next nominee, voted not only against the bill, but sparked a resurgence in the conservative movement. Since then, the parties were loosely marked by their identities. The Democrats were the liberals on the left, and the Republicans represented the conservative right. While there was a modest blend between them, today there is a clear and clean split between the parties and how they carry themselves. There's no expecting a Republican saying,
I believe in the idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though some time back they may have entered illegally.
The Civil Rights Act was the beginning of ideological sorting for the parties, with Southern Dixiecrats joining the Republicans and Northern liberals joining hands with Democrats. Not only would these party lines fuse into one over time, but so too would the rest of their behaviors and psychology fall into place.
So I worked for ABC, NBC, and CBS, and then WSB was ABC here in Atlanta. So it was probably 11 years total working as a reporter and anchor.
How much of a role do you think the media plays in polarizing the public on politics? Like today?
Is there more than 100%? I think it's huge. No, I think it's massive. And it's unfortunate because instead of reporting the facts, when they start reporting their opinion, that's where the polarization happens, because then you have people who feel like they have to side. Because when you state an opinion, human nature tells you, I'm either with that opinion or I'm against that opinion. And if you're for that opinion, you feel unity. If you're against that opinion, you feel defensiveness. And unfortunately, that's a separation. And when you state opinion, you are literally, by definition, creating divisiveness.
And these political conglomerates would quickly grow to affect not only the beliefs of their members, but there is clear evidence of this division going far into race, beliefs, and even geography. While the congregation of ideals made it far easier for politicians to understand and appeal to their audiences, the effects of identifying with such a wide range of ideals would soon manifest itself in the followers of these politicians as well. The psychology of these parties gets a little bit twisted. It's not just about winning for the sake of your own platform, but also out of vitriolic belief in the negative partisanship, a drive to vote against the party we oppose.
But I always urge everybody, first of all, Fox News, CNN, not the best news outlets to get your information from, but where else do you go? You know, like local news only goes so far into national stories. Even the printed papers, the Washington Post, the New York Times, they're all following suit. It's really a shame. So
pundits and social media folk talking about triggering the libs or fighting against the deplorables. The more insults and hostility thrown out, the further amnesty amongst each other grows, the more one views each other as a threat, and the negative partisanship expands. And it's carried a feedback loop back to the people it originated from.
So for me, it started when I was at CBS this was 2002. And I was brand new to that station, and they called it Viewer Advocacy News. And they said, we're going to start doing this new type of reporting, and we're calling it viewer advocacy. And it was the first time that they introduced the pronoun I into the reporter's vernacular. We were never a part of the story, ever, ever, ever. And what they wanted to do was show viewers the process of the reporting and how we came about gathering our information, because they felt like they wanted to pull back the curtain and show people, I just went to the police department and I obtained this police report. Just moments ago, I spoke with the mayor. It really was met with a lot of resistance to the journalists, because we had always been taught we are not the story. And of course, we just went down to the police station and got that police report. That's how we're bringing you. A 35-year-old man was arrested, on drug charges, whatever it is. But they really wanted to include that information. And for me, that was the beginning of the end, because it created egos in journalists, where all of a sudden they wanted to be part of the story because now they were allowed to be a part of the story. And that's just my opinion on how it originated. But for me, it was clear as day. Like, as soon as you put I and you put the reporter in the story, like, you're done.
What would your advice be for my generation to differentiate between opinionated news and factual news? Do you think that there's something that's black and white to where you can tell?
Yes. You always want to look at something and say, can that statement be argued? If it can, it's an opinion. So the man died at 10 o'clock. That statement cannot be debunked. He's dead. He died at 10. But a nation in crisis waits for word from Donald Trump. It's a widely held view that our nation is in crisis. But can you debate that? And it's where the headlines, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That was, the old saying. They have to become more sensationalistic in order to grab people's attention.
This goes back to the point of the intro, where nothing was really all that different in 2016. Quoting from Why We're Polarized, in 2004, the Republican candidate for president won 55% of men. In 2008, he won 48%. In 2012, 52%. And in 2016, Trump won 52% of men, precisely matching Romney's performance. In 2004, the Republican candidate won 44% of Hispanic votes. In 2008, he won 31%. In 2012, 27%, and in 2016, 28%. After the GOP's 2004 victory, the Republican Party's dominance was widely ascribed to Bush's deep, authentic bond with white born-again Christians, of whom 78% pulled the lever for his re-election. In 2008, the GOP candidate won 74% of these voters. In 2012, it was back up to 78%. But Trump was different. He was a morally louche adulterer who flaunted his wealth, and whenever asked on the campaign trail if he had ever turned to God for forgiveness,
I'm not sure I have. I just go on and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so.
So how did he do among white born-again voters? He won 80%. It's no surprise that Trump's personality and history gave the sense of something changing. But the main surprise of these stats is how leading the party lines were. And these party lines bleed into our government officials too. Obama's infamous Affordable Health Care Act was based off Republican Governor Mitt Romney's efforts in Massachusetts, but not a single Republican voted for it in 2010. A clear indicator that most senators simply do not care about what they vote for, only that they maintain the longevity of their career by strengthening their political party. So where does this all stem from? Why not just vote while distant from your party? After all, it's not like one is rewarded for voting for somebody they hate solely because of that person's political presentation. Unfortunately, the system of political parties is deeply tied together with these party lines. Networking and connections are everything, and to damage them while you're in power would bring erroneous damage. Party lines rest on this identity-protective cognition. As a way of avoiding dissonance and estrangement from valued groups, individuals subconsciously resist the factual information that threatens their defining values. This exemplifies the core of polarization. It's a complex beast. It's brought about by many systems and strategies already brought upon by the nature of politics. The only way around such a beast is to be aware of it and extend past it, to understand your core defining beliefs in government, to vote for a president, not a party.